Alright, so one of our last steps here, let's just talk about the AOVs and render layers that we've set up, and then we'll move on and do just a little bit of a comp in Nuke. So here we have the final render. This frame took about 2.5 hours, because I just cranked the pixel samples to 40 and 40. It's probably a little higher than it needed to be. Really all that's in this scene are particles, so there's not that much more to optimize. We turned off stochastic transparency because we're not using any volumetrics. Took out things like subsurface and refraction and volume because none of that is in here. So this is probably a little higher than it needed to be, but it gave us a clean render. So that's what I wanted. I'm okay with that. For the setup itself, we used some image planes. And all that we exported out was we did a depth pass and then also a lighting pass in terms of individual light AOVs. So if we look through our passes here, you'll see got our Z depth, and then we start getting into the light selects. So each individual light and what it is contributing to the whole gets broken out. So if we wanted to just affect the contribution of one of these lights instead of having them all in one, this is a really great way to break it out and give you a little bit of extra control over your renders. And again, I think a really good one to look at is that star emit that we did. And you can see here are all the little hotspots where all the stars that we turned into geolights are contributing their light through the particle volume. But yeah, so all this stuff looks good. And again, I'm just playing with the contrast here. The true render out of the gate looks overblown, but once you get it into comp with full range, we're gonna be knocking that back to something that's a little bit more in this range. So just keep that in mind for why I keep having to put this guy to 0.1, is I'm just knocking it down into a range that I know we're gonna end up in comp. So essentially for the beauty render, that's all that we needed to do. The only other thing that I rendered out was I made that separate star matte, which ends up looking like this guy here, so that we can go and give these guys an extra bit of blooming and glint. Otherwise they end up just looking like just these random dots. We want to give them a little bit more sexiness than that. So that's what the star matte was for. So let's jump over into Nuke and take a look at what we got. Okay, so this is the end result. I'll just walk you through just a little bit of some of the nodes we have in here. It's a really simple comp, straightforward. So this is our end result, but then let me just turn all this stuff off so that you can see from top to bottom kind of where we got to where we were. So first things first, just this top grade node is the one that knocked it back exposure-wise to be more like what we were looking at in render view over here. Let's see. Whoopsie. That we're pretty close to what we were seeing and to what it's going to be in Nuke. So that's what the purpose of this was for. So go back. So that first grade knocks it down, gets us out of that overblown sort of range. Then just threw on a defocus to knock out the stars in the distance, get them to be less, just kind of looks like what it is. It just looks like noise. But you throw the defocus on, and now we're looking at something that's a little bit more what we're looking for. Started incorporating some glows to kind of bloom things out. Graded us back down again, giving us a lot more contrast. And then just played with the saturations a bit. And then here I started looking at bringing in one of those light selects and just use that to kind of pump things up a little bit. So if I turn this guy back on, take us down here, So you'll see by adding this guy, actually, there, going back and forth, this is where we were, but then shuffling out just that blue light contribution coming from the center gives us the ability to really kind of exaggerate that and crank that out. And that's the beauty of those light select AOVs, is you can really get control over individual pieces in your comp. So then progressing on down the line, just threw on a little bit of glint right down here in this area, bloom it out, give it a little bit of star glow. And then added another glow on top of that because it was looking a little bit too effecty, and that just brings it together. And then the soften just kind of overall knocks back a little bit of the CG-ness of it all and kind of fuzzes it up a little bit, adds a little bit more blooming going on through there. Another color correct node to really friggin' punch those colors up. I like this sort of overly skittle colored saturation of like a Guardians of the Galaxy type look. That makes me happy. And then here is where we started bringing in that star matte so that we can start taking care of these guys that are just turning out to be, you know, just gray balls. Using that as a mask. Bring that in, so now we go away from just the gray to something a little brighter. It's inheriting a little bit of the color from the comp itself, and then just adding a glint onto those stars. And basically that gets us to where we want to be with just a small little bit of light comping. You can get something that looks pretty sweet. And again, if you think about it, in just a couple of hours time with one particle simulation, basically we made this entire thing with a torus. So I think that's pretty cool. You can get some pretty complex stuff going on with some pretty simple setups. You can be as complicated or as uncomplicated as you want, as long as you get where you want to go. It's all good. Alright, so that's it for this one. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was informative. And keep an eye out for future releases on MAXDEPTH.tv. Join us on social media. Keep in touch. I'd love to hear your feedback. And keep an eye out for Volume 2 of this series that we're going to have coming up fairly soon, where we'll expand upon what we've learned here and incorporate some volumetrics, pyro, things like that. We'll be advecting particles through volumes, just trying to do some things to give us a little bit more variety, a little bit more complexity to our simulations. So keep an eye out for that. Alright, thanks guys.